It is Blue Monday here on the Blue Room. I am Matt Jones, joining me as ever to get your week started in a great way on all things Everton is Dave Downey. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah, not too bad. Think don't feel as negative as I would against Manchester City. Because let's face it, um, didn't think we particularly get any result down there. So yeah, the more important one's to come, isn't it, on Monday? And those who are listening to us, I know we're sort of later today, but there's a big game going on for us tonight, isn't there, with Crystal Palace against Chelsea. So I've actually gone a little bit too far ahead of things today, Matt, because I was just looking at the league table, which I tend to do a lot these days. And if Chelsea is the ifs now, so people might even turn over me saying this, but if Chelsea win away at at Palace tonight, then we play them on Monday. If we beat them next Monday, we're 2 points behind them, same amount of games.
Yeah,
So
they're right in it, aren't they?
yeah,
I
that
mean,
well,
it's,
I should have said that. I'm making assumptions, but
yeah,
you're absolutely right. And there's a few other signs of clubs that are in there with us as well. Massive win for Brentford, of course, at the weekend, but also Nottingham Forest look like they're right there for us, just ahead of us. So it looks like as well we've got. I'm not going to say an easier run of games, but the big ones that we've had recently, Spurs, City, um, the ones where you'd go as far as saying expect more points, but more of a chance of getting points are about to come right in our line now.
yeah. The last three games, I think, following on from that Villa 0-0. I'm obviously like getting the news after that the Doucoure was going to be out. Like Fulham away with one midfielder, Spurs who got. I think a few months ago, Spurs maybe when we played them, actually, they were a bit of a shadow team, weren't they? They had like two fullbacks playing centre back. Madison was out. I think they had a couple of injuries in other areas of the pitch as well, and it felt like they were quite vulnerable then. But that was that team that came to us in that lunchtime kickoff felt very much like their strongest 11. So obviously apart from Son, and
Yeah.
then obviously City, like it felt like that little group of three games was always going to be difficult. And I think someone had said to me before that, and this is quite negative, you're gonna get 2 points from those three. I probably would have been all right with it. Like especially the circumstances of Fulham with the one midfielder and all that. But yeah, and I think maybe that's where we should start the podcast by saying three cheers for Sheffield United and three cheers for Newcastle at the weekend for helping us there. Because like before we get into the game, I think Dave, for us, realistically, we weren't going to make ground up on teams this weekend. So I think to be able to come out the weekend and sort of be locked in the same pattern that we were in with Luton, locked in the same pattern that we're in with Forest, potentially with Crystal Palace, depending on what happens in the next couple of hours here. Like that feels about as good as we could have realistically hoped for.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think the 6 pointers in everybody sort of saying is about to come along soon, isn't it? The good thing for us is we've got Palace at home and Forest at home there. If they're the two that are sort of we're aiming to finish above, we've got both of them at Goodison, which feels a lot more comfortable. And it's funny how quickly that changed, isn't it, this season? Because we were really happy to play away from home. That doesn't feel as confident as it did when we won those four in a row. And that's not just because we haven't won away from home, but I don't think we've been lining up as well as we have done earlier this season. And then, of course, there's the injuries we've spoken about as well. After that game against City, and a lot of discussions on social media about the Calvert-Lewin issue. By that is him. I thought it was really negative to do so by people who are criticising, overly criticising him against City, because what's he supposed to do? Who is he going to have close to him when you're trying to put as many people behind the ball against Manchester City away? Let's face it, 90% of sides do that away at Manchester City in the Premier League. So, we said, didn't we, in last week's show, not verbatim to what you said, but you kind of look at it and think you really need to get this out of the way without putting the kids in the team and all that sort of thing. We really needed to get it done and dusted and then focus on what's to come, really, because with Haaland back as well, to only get beat 2-0 there, there'll be a lot of teams that get hammered a hell of a lot worse than that. So, but the performance wasn't too bad, to be honest with you. If you listen to the
Yeah,
post-match with Les, the performance wasn't too bad. It's just, it's when you just realise you're playing for probably the best club side in world football. You need to remember that when you're coming up against them away from home. So you tick that one off. And like you said last week, I think that's spot on. you've then got what 9 or 10 days to get everybody sorted out and into the right mentality and position when you've got this 6 pointer coming up on Monday against Palace.
Yeah, I get. I've not listened to post match yet, but it's I think with games like I think City and Liverpool are aware you're the two that I do this for. Like I just go in with no expectation, and then
Yeah.
there's always a point, and like I got beyond this point earlier in the season when we played Liverpool, where you go in with no expectation, so you're doing that self-preservation thing, aren't you? Where I'm expecting nothing, so I can't be hurt when we ultimately get nothing. But I think there always comes a point in games like that when you get to like 60, 70 and you're thinking, maybe. And like you cross into that threshold of being, or you think, yeah, I'm here now. I'm going to be gutted if we don't get something here. And like the Liverpool game earlier in the season, it felt like that because probably because they should have been down to 10 men as well. We had a few decisions, and like it got to a point where I was like, we're doing all right here. We could hold these out and get a draw. I didn't quite get there on Saturday. Like I think maybe another if we got to 75 and maybe you would have thought a little bit different, but it was just the fact that they had Grealish, Bernardo on the bench still to potentially bring on. It was one of them where it felt like, we're close here. We're close to getting
Yeah.
somewhere, but I still feel like it's going to be beyond us. And I think the reason for that is because like I sort of always felt like we'd have to score in the game. And I kind of felt like we might get a goal before we started because I think they've had a bit of a ropey time defensively, haven't they? I think they can see. I think
Yeah,
that's the first
no, I
clean
think
sheet for ages for City.
they've had a really poor run of form in terms of conceding. They haven't kept many clean sheets in like the last 10 games, I don't think.
Yeah, but like I think what they did, like this is just Pep Guardiola, probably one being a clever manager and two having just loads of amazing plays to pick from. But I think the way in which they set up exposed one problem we've got and one problem we might have between now and the end of the season. And I think the problem that we've got is that we are a slow team, and like we are really slow. And you think about teams that have gone there, and there's not many of them, but you think about teams who've gone there and just got something mad down the years. Like Liverpool have done it occasionally. Obviously, they're just a good side with loads of good attacking players. But the other one's Palace, who have got
Exactly.
just a lot of fast lads at the top end of the pitch, and they can just, they can find an outlet in games sometimes, and they can just trouble them. And I think when you watch yours, and you're right about Calvert-Lewin, he effectively played up against four centre backs on his own because they played four centre backs, didn't they? And Stones, Akanji, Diaz, and Ake. Did he play? Yeah, they were the
Yeah,
four, weren't they? He played
yeah,
it plus the back four. Um, and it just felt like whenever we got the ball, either Dom didn't hold it up well enough, and then if he could fight off a couple of defenders to get hold of the ball, everybody in our team is so slow and knackered that by the time they got up to him, City got the shape back and the danger had kind of gone, or we played that second pass and there's nobody else to pass it to. So I think that's an issue that we've got, and listen, there's nothing we can do about that. Um, I think the other thing as well that Guardiola did, which was very sensible from his point of view, is that he just played all his big lads, didn't he? In
yeah,
the centre arch, you don't see Kyle Walker get dropped very often for City at the moment, do you? Because he's been playing so well. And I think the fact that he went with four centre backs said a lot. He obviously had Haaland back in the team as well, starting, and I think they had those five and Rodri, who were all big lads in the box. As much as
yeah,
they're great on the ball and can pass and move as well as anyone and take up really intelligent positions to be technical. Um, the fact that they just dealt with everything we could in terms of set pieces was it just sort of cut us off at the knees, didn't it? Like every time we had the ball, you're thinking, right, here we go. This is where we've been successful in recent weeks. And every time we launched it into the box, one of their massive fellas just headed it away.
yeah,
And I think that's something the teams will look at now between now and the end of the season when they play us. I think we've got Brentford at home who go between a back five and a back four. I think they play a back five because they want to combat that. And I think teams will see that without Doucoure in particular, when it comes to scoring goals, if you can stop Everton scoring from set pieces, you're halfway there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think he's going to have to find. I think that's the challenge for the manager now, and it's not entirely based on this game, but I think he's going to have to find the spark in the final third from somewhere, be it another set piece routine, be it a player coming back in Doucoure, hopefully, or if he can't do it, somebody else coming into form. Because it was around this time last year that McNeil started to pick up speed, wasn't it? And it was like,
yeah,
right, here we go. This is the player who could potentially help us and carry us and get the goals we need here. He looks absolutely gassed at the moment.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it kind of feels like somebody else has got to do it. Who that is, I don't know. But given the way in which City exposed a couple of our, I know I've gone on a bit here, and given the way City exposed a couple of our big weaknesses, I think other teams will try and replicate that
Mm.
in the coming weeks. Or they will be able to do it as well as City because they're not as good as City. But I think that's just something that I thought a little bit after the game at the weekend that he's going to have to find a different way of doing things in the final third if teams just play the big lads when they play against us.
Yeah, and we're playing against one of those sides with that with Crystal Palace. They've got a
Oh,
lot of it.
Mateta starts, doesn't he? Like 100%. Like
Yeah.
he will be in the team, like just so he's another big body in the box who can combat us having our big bodies in the
Yeah.
box.
I mean, do you know, as well as I think we've done, I'm not mentioning that word again, why we're on the number of points that we're on, but have always been, I think, under Dice a bit of a one-trick pony with that sort of things. The set pieces have been so crucial for us. They're the bread and butter stuff we need to do so well. But I actually don't think it's too difficult. And West Ham are obviously in City were exactly the example of this, but obviously in a larger sort of capacity than anybody else we've played, who find it pretty simple to sort that out with the big lads that they've got there. I think also as well where we have to watch, and particularly at home, because we will put a few fellas into the box. We try to play a little bit more positivity, trying to get the ball forward, trying to run with the ball forward. Issue when we get that, you've got our two big centre backs who you want to throw in there. You've got the midfielder one. I've got to say Onana's there. You've obviously got Calvert-Lewin or Beto if he's on. You've got half of the 11 in there, so that opens the door for counter attack. And I think you'd see that all day from City, but also again, I think that's where Palace are underestimated. They've got some quick lads who can get forward. I mean, that's the conundrum I think that the Dice has got. I mean, I don't try to be overly critical of him, but when he was the ideal manager that we ended up getting last season, he seemed to have a way in which to control games a lot better, in which he has done this season. I'm not just talking about results and goals we scored and things like that. I'm more talking about changing things up. Now, where he would, the first thing he'd say to us if he was sitting on the show talking to us, he'd be looking at us saying, "Where do I look? Tell me where I should do anything here, lads." And that was a little bit of what me and Les spoke about at the weekend. Was what's the alternative? What else can we do? You've got Beto to put on there. He's not an answer when he's not exactly the same as Calvert-Lewin, but you're still looking for the same things to put the ball up forward to a big lad who can control it. And let's face it, they're not his best attributes anyway. So you know, I look at it sometimes. I think the best you can get to hope for in most games is a draw, and that's with playing. We have done, to be fair, defensively being quite solid. You talk about the set pieces. I think the stat there is there's only Arsenal who've got the same amount as us in the Premier League.
Yeah, and that is good, but I've just sort of had a little look back there, and I think since that 27 pass move against Newcastle, that was on December the 7th. We scored 2 goals from open play in the Premier
How
League.
many is it in
One,
total? How many goals have we scored in total?
not too bad, but like the 2 that we scored from open play one was in the very next game. That was Doucoure against Chelsea. Then we
Yeah,
had Dobbin in that game, which was deflected out from a corner, wasn't to the edge of the box, and he rattled
yeah,
it in. Burnley away 2-0 again, 2 set pieces. Obviously, the second one was second phase. Gomez at Spurs in 2-1 defeat, out from a corner to the edge of the box. Lose 3-1 at home to City. Harrison scores from open play. That's the other one. And then you've got no goals at Wolves, no goals against Villa, no goals against Fulham, 2 against Spurs the other week, which were both from set pieces, and obviously none at the weekend. So like that, like we are good at set pieces and it's helping us. But if teams can combat that, like City did at the weekend, then it's one of them. It's like, well, there's no other way. And like, obviously the caveat to all that is that all of those games pretty much, apart from the first half of Burnley, were without Doucoure. And he is just, you say say about a one trick pony there, Dave. Like the pony's name is Abdullah, isn't it? Because
yeah.
without him, like none of this works out of possession, in possession when it's open play. So I'm not getting like don't go over the top after the defeat of City, but it's just a couple of little things that did kind of spring to mind there. Have you got a player of the weekend from an Everton perspective? Like Bruno Guimaraes is not allowed. You can't pick him, despite his 2 goals against Forest at the weekend. But I think for me, I'll go first. I think I'm still going to go Branthwaite, even after.
So you're just saying your Everton weekend, or you're saying
Yeah, Everton. Yeah, Everton player. I think I'm going to go Branthwaite still. I think he still has a good game. In the main, I think obviously
yeah,
the Haaland thing. It's one of them where it feels like he's not played against him before, and he just thinks he can give him a little bump, and he's like, well,
yeah,
no, this fella's made of steel,
yeah.
basically. But I think for other than that, the 90 minutes that preceded that, pretty much he was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout, and it's hard not to have him near the top of the list most weeks. That's only how good he's been for us, isn't it? You could probably throw an argument in for him, even if he has a poorer game. He's still going to be up and around the best that we have. But I'm going. I think it's the second time I've mentioned him in the last two games, and it's Godfrey for me. The reason being, the outlet for City constantly in that first half was over to Doku. And beside getting past him a couple of times when he run past him and playing neat little 1-2s with whoever come over to him, I thought Godfrey handled them pretty well in what he was. He was on his own as well. He didn't really have anybody else back with him. Thought he stood his ground really well. He's obviously quick enough to handle him, and I didn't see Doku creating that many chances for City. I know he likes to cut inside. I know he likes to hit a shot on his right foot, maybe try and kill one in the top corner, outside the 18-yard box. But I think Godfrey, when it come over to him, handled him pretty well. So I'm going to go for him against City. But obviously, there weren't many to choose from, sadly.
Yeah, I think there were a few rash moments where, like, if he had a bad 10 minutes, didn't he, in the first half, where like, but like again, like watching that at the time, I was thinking, oh no, here we go, it's Joe Linton against Godfrey all over again. This,
What
but
do you expect, though, Matt? That's the
like
thing. I think,
Doku is going to skin players, isn't he? Like, because
yeah,
he's a very
also,
very good dribbler.
how many games has Godfrey played
That would
recently?
that would have been his third start of the season, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I mean, how much can you ask of that? Really? I mean, it's another indictment of what Dice thinks of Patterson, really, isn't it? The fact that Godfrey comes in and he's only played 3 games and he's coming up against one of the best players in the Premier League. I think that Patterson just doesn't even want to sit on the bench at times. But for Godfrey coming back in, having been out in the cold for such a long time, I think he deserves a bit of credit for what he did there. And like you said, I think there were spells in that game where I think Guardiola's obviously looked at that pre-match and thought, yeah, we can probably get along there. That's why he's put Doku in there. I think because he's lightning quick. He's full of, he's got all sorts of tricks going and stuff like that. Then I think he put Grealish on when Godfrey went off injured, sort of injured. And that sort of looked better as well. So he's obviously targeted that side of the pitch against us. But in all of those circumstances, I think he did all right. He wasn't a fault for either of the goals, was he?
No. Do you know what? Do you know what I liked about his performance actually? Like thinking back to some of his games where his head has come off, like the Newcastle one I mentioned, where
Yeah.
he got skinned by Gillingham over and over again the first half, and then Isak walked past him, doesn't he, for that horrific fourth goal. We can see it that night. And there's another game he played last season as well against United where away, it just felt like they were just lashing the ball over his head the entire game, and Sancho and Anthony were just running in behind. Like I think there would have been potential, I think, for Saturday to go that way. And like I said, there were a couple of times where Doku just got past him and created like
Yeah.
an opening. And that's when I thought, oh no, here we go. He's going to have one of those games again. But I vividly remember him actually doing a good bit of play in the box and heading it back to Pickford and then getting in front of Doku, I think, and winning a foul. And it was like, right, you've recovered now. That's good. Like
Yeah.
whereas in the past, sometimes when he's has a couple of little moments in the space of 5 minutes, he finds it dead hard to recover,
Yeah.
and you can sort of see that he's sort of careering away with himself and getting himself down. But he just kept his head screwed on a little bit better at the weekend, I thought.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's a bit of a headless chicken at times because he's so quick. I think he acknowledges that as his best attribute is bombing forward as often as he possibly can defensively. I don't think there's been too many occasions where we've thought, wow, he's a top either fullback or he's a top centre half when you're playing three at the back. I don't think that's what I see his future for with us. You still have many people screaming that you don't want him on the pitch ahead of Michael Keane, but that's not really something to praise, is it? I'm glad that he's shown that he can still perform because, like I say, he looked like he was on his way out. Certainly not to a Premier League side. I wouldn't have thought either. With the bit of context that we had, I think early doors when he started playing for us, I think like most players when they come in as young, you start going a bit too far, saying, "Oh, he's going to be top class." You'll see him playing for England this season and stuff like that. You're going to get that when, particularly in our situation, where you can't really rave about players that we have coming in all of the time. Certainly not in the last few years. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a sense of maturity that we saw against City, because it would have been very, very easy for him to just try and get forward as often as he can and whip across in for Calvert-Lewin. The one thing I wanted to move on was the Calvert-Lewin thing in itself. And, you know, I started getting all sorts on social media for saying I think that was the wrong game to actually target him as hard as he has been, to criticise him as hard
Oh, right,
as
okay. I thought you meant like in terms of like targeting him with the ball, not
yeah, I
social
mean,
media.
what can you expect? And people are saying, oh, but he still didn't hold it up. I'm thinking, well, if he did hold it up, you've got nobody within 15, 20 yards of him, because we're trying to stop them from breaking forward. I thought it was a thankless task against City. And that's all I simply said. But the amount of people that just consistently just, can't stop calling him all sorts, like calling him shit. He's not a
Mm.
Premier League player anymore. I actually had sympathy for him against City. I mean, that's, it's by the by when you consider he hasn't scored for what now, 17, 18 games, something
Yeah.
like that. Last time he scored. I mean, that in itself, in a bit of a nutshell, is what we have an issue with there, because you've got him and you've got Beto and you've got nobody else, unless Doucoure's in there. And we've got, what, 14 games left, 14 games to save our season, to um, save our state in the Premier League. That's quite scary when you think Doucoure's still not back in there.
Mm.
Um,
I think he'll be back on
Onana,
Monday. I think he'll be back Monday, the
yeah,
core, yeah.
I really hope so, mate. But like I said to you at the start, there's so many 6 pointers we've got there. Thankfully at home, and even like Sheffield United, we're sort of relying on so many like strange games. Say strange games, so many games that it makes you stop, take a stand back, and think, wow, how bad are we? And now relying on Sheffield United to won like 2 games all season to go to
Yeah.
lose.
It's weird, isn't it? 'Cause, like we're still, you put those 10 points back on, like the points this team have actually got, and like we're still a mid-table team. Like
Yeah, yeah,
we're still
yeah.
not totally disconnected from the top half or top eight. Like and yeah,
4 points behind Newcastle. Newcastle is like Europeans. I think Brighton as well would only be 4 points behind them.
yeah. So it's frustrating, isn't it? But it's it's just the sensation around seeing yourself in the bottom three,
Yeah,
isn't it? Like, and all rational thought would suggest that they've been they've got X amount of points in the first half without the deduction. They should be able to do it again in the second half. Obviously, maybe not as good because there's a few tired bodies. The squad's starting to look at like it's feeling the wear and tear a little bit. Calvert-Lewin's not playing as well, but this is still a team that can keep clean sheets frequently. Has got some decent players in it, so you'd like to think that we can do it, but yeah, on Calvert-Lewin, it's like it's just so cruel. I think that for so long it was like, God, we need this lad fit again, and now he's having his best run of fitness for years, and he can't score a goal, can he? It's but like even so, they like, and this might sound harsh, but I think even at Calvert Lewin, who was on 0 out of 10 in terms of confidence, still feels like our best option up front.
well,
And like that's obviously we've not seen loads of better. We've seen even less of Chimiti, but Beto's cameo was just hilarious the weekend, wasn't it? The one where he ran through and he was clearly offside and he spooned it miles wide, and then there's another one where he's clearly 5 yards offside and he somehow rattles that in the corner. Um, like he just doesn't seem like in tune with anyone, and like that might not be surprising because he's not played much footy with them, but I don't know. Like I'm still waiting to see signs or any kind of outline of a footballer that is going to be worth £25 million in a year or so. Like it's just not, apart from his debut against Doncaster, it's just not been there for me. But listen, but I also think that with Dyche having persisted with Calvert-Lewin for so long now, you've got to sort of stick with him when the core is back as well. And I feel like as soon as the core is back, that Dom will become a better player. Like obviously part of this goalless run was when the core was in the team, but it just feels like as a pair, they just work a lot better and they'll both get the best out of each other. So I think Palace on on Monday, all being well, you'd just get them both as your front two again.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. But the thing that say guilty of it's the only hope we've got really is the Corey coming back in there. But I just want to ask you in general about Calvert-Lewin. He overly, I think it's fair the criticism he's received up to a point. Completely writing the lad off to this point now. People are saying, "Oh, he's not even a Premier League striker." You go from the time where he's had one season where he's bagged over 20 goals in a season, is now sort of it's now or never. It's just not going to happen for him. He's in his mid-20s now. It's easy to get that out of your mind. I think he's still a kid, but he's not. Um, do you still see him having like a future of a quality Premier League striker with us? Because
Um,
I don't think it's there anymore, Matt. And I hate to say it because he's led the line for us on his own for quite some time now in terms of seasons and years. We've traditionally been like that as well, just having one man up front or one decent man up front for since the years before Moyes, really. But
it's difficult, isn't it? Like being honest, like in this system, no, I don't think so. Because I think playing up front in this way it's quite taxing. I think,
yeah,
and like his body has been through so much with all the rehab and injuries he's had down the years. And I don't really think like if you think about like Calvert-Lewin when he first came in, and like and that season we had on the Silver where he was playing really well but not scoring the goals, like that version of Calvert-Lewin would have been perfect for the way we play now because he was like robust and he'd run into the channels and he was a great foil for good attacking midfield players, which we had then in Sigurdsson and Richarlison. Like if we had him now, like he'd be such a great foil for Doucoure. But
mm.
like that sort of vibrancy has just gone from his game a bit. I think because he's got older and his game's changed and his body's changed, but I just think because of the injuries as well.
Yeah,
So
I think that's fair to say with his injuries that I think that as well, you need to add on to the fact that the consistency that you find from a player who's been out for so long and you're stepping into a side that's changed quite a bit when you've got, well, we keep mentioning the Corey being out, you've got him being out, but, like I said on against City, and people are saying, I don't want the lad to play in an Everton shirt anymore. I'm saying, well, look who he's playing against here. There are circumstances in which you think that's not really his fault. I can see that to an extent because sometimes even when you're playing against sides where you really need to be better, where the criticism comes at him is holding the ball up. But then the opposite of that is who's he giving it to? Have we got a load of lads bombing it forward? Have you got Addison one side? Have you got McNeil the other side? He's just able to lay it off to him, get himself into the box. There's a couple of chances that Les mentioned there in the last few games where he's just never felt like he's the man across his defender. Some balls are being whipped in across the floor, and he should be the first one there to just get his foot to it and try and put it in the net. Just none of that from him either. So um, yeah, I'm edging towards thinking that he's not going to be what we all thought he was going to be really.
yeah,
And that when he was playing for England and things like that, fair play to the lad then. But if he's the one that we can rely upon and Doucoure, I mean, it's a lot of pressure on Doucoure's shoulders, even from what we've spoke about for the last half hour. But
yeah,
also what we have to do until the end of the season, I'm quite nervous about, given that he's the only one or Beto are going to lead this line for us, Matt. So going back to your initial question from the start there, what else is there? Schmidt, do you put him in there? Do you have a makeshift striker?
no, I think you just got. I think you persist with personally. I persist with Calvert-Lewin for now. Like
No other choice.
I think while Doucoure's back, I think you give it a few more games just to see if they can rekindle it. Like I wouldn't write Calvert-Lewin off as a Premier League striker. Like I feel like if we went to a team that was a bit better than us, created a few more chances, well, from wide areas in particular, then I think he could still be effective. But
Yeah,
like I just look at the way we play and the demands that are on that centre forward, like physically, and I just don't know. Like he's obviously fit and playing now, but he doesn't look sharp. He looks like he's been ground down by just challenge in the air after challenge in the air, running the channels. Like, and I don't think he can necessarily do that job anymore. Like he looked like he could when he first came back into the team. There was some games. I remember Bournemouth at home, we won 3-0 and he didn't score, but he was absolutely fantastic. And it was like the old Calvert Lewin when he first came to Everton. But like I don't know if he's got that consistently in him anymore. Um, and also I think the other factor to probably consider is that would any striker in the world have scored 10 goals for us this season if they've been playing up front for us? Like with the way
Yeah,
we play, like we're not a team that like plays great crosses into the box or threads like nice little through balls into the path of the striker. It is agricultural. It is you've got a battle. Like most of our goals come with three or four bodies on the floor on the goal line, and it hits someone's arse and goes in. Like that's the way we score goals, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, that's
It's not
it,
like
yeah,
an inventive attacking way of playing. So I don't know. Like the one thing I'd say is that like a striker's a goal can change anything, can it? Like and if he
yeah,
scores on Monday, then all of a sudden he feels he's got his mate Doucoure back. Um, he feels much better about himself, and he could go on a little run. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'd personally be tempted to stick with him. Be
mm,
interested to see what other people think about that in the comments as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If they're watching on YouTube, give us a shout. Just last quick shout, Dave. Anything catch your eye from the footballing world this weekend you'd like to bring up before we wrap up?
Yeah, I did. I did like obviously the result of the weekend was what Arsenal did over at West Ham. And up to the final whistle, I just loved what Declan Rice was doing to his former side that he still loves because he ripped them apart on his own. Odegaard as
Unbelievable
well.
goal, wasn't it?
Oh, it was absolute peach. And the only thing that ruined it was for me, he runs around as fast as he can, clapping everyone, and none of that for me. I don't want to see any of that. Like I said, Charlison, I don't want to see any of that. I'd have loved if he just put two fingers up to them and said, "No, you're a shit," and walked out saying we could win the league with Arsenal.
It's
But his performance there and Arsenal in general, that to me looked like they're seriously in this title race because it was around this middle patch of the season towards the end where they started dropping some points and things. To go there and win 6-0. I mean, Saka would be the easiest player to choose for most of their games when they go and win them, and he's all over the place, isn't he? He's just a cracking player. I do like a player going back to where they used to play and doing something nice against them. That goal he scored was stunning as well, wasn't it? To put it in the
yeah.
top corner.
Like I think Trossard goes a little bit under the radar as well. He's been a great
He
signing
scored a
for
great
them.
goal too. Yeah,
Just plays everywhere across the front line.
yeah,
Brilliant
yeah,
finisher, great link player. I'm still not totally convinced by Arsenal, I've got to say. Like they were amazing at the weekend, but I still think it'll ultimately come down to City and Liverpool just because they've been there and done it in terms of
yeah,
staying the pace. Um, I watched I tried to watch a couple of games on Saturday night. Leverkusen absolutely smashed Bayern Munich
yeah,
3-0. If you saw that. Bayern had one shot on target in the entire game. It was an absolute demolition job. So
yeah.
Leverkusen are 5 points clear now. Um, Hopefully Alonso sees sense and doesn't fancy taking over. I mean, it'd just be
I don't
typical
know,
them, wouldn't it? Like
you know,
they've had this like elite manager for 8 years, and then all of a sudden, like one of their club icons has just suddenly become one of the best managers in Europe, and he's going to fall right into into there. It's amazing how things work out for them, isn't it?
I'm not
Um,
going as far as that exaggeration, but it is Liverpool, so they normally will get that just a jammy gang of idiots, aren't they?
yeah, everything falls for them. And
Yeah,
the other one,
exactly. And it's just the easiest thing to go and do, isn't it? Your world
yeah,
class midfielder that's won Champions Leagues for you and things like that. Oh, he's doing well. He's beat the best side that's been in Germany for decades. He's gone and won the league against them. Leverkusen haven't won it for I don't think until like
yeah, ages.
two of the times. And then he goes and does that. And I think that's a simple choice. Any my mates who are Reds are like, you just go and get him. It's a simple choice. And I was like, well, he's only just had a year as in management. Not too sure, but like when you see results
He's done a
like that,
couple of other jobs, hasn't he? He was at Sociedad's B team for a bit
yeah, and he was at
as
Madrid
well.
for a
So
bit as well, wasn't he?
yeah, so he's
Yeah,
so yeah. But listen, I mean, whatever happens there, whoever comes in, it's going to be hard to replace the fella going out. But just one other
yeah,
thing I wanted to mention from the weekend as well. Girona got absolutely smashed by Real Madrid, didn't they? Felt like sort of
yeah,
natural order restored, sadly, in Spain with that.
yeah.
But
So
you know,
Bayern doesn't do the same, eh?
yeah, well, but Bayern are one of those other teams where it just always seems to fluke the way to the last day of last season. They managed to do it somehow, didn't they, as well?
Yeah. Hope it's
But
City as well this season, mate.
yeah, well, or Arsenal, or Luton the way they're going, who knows? Right, well,
Luton is safe, mate. Luton is.
yeah,
You go back to the season, the start of the season when you said, "Nah, it's fine, we're safe." Luton are the side I'm saying it is
Ross
now.
Ross Barkley could be in the England squad and everything, apparently, couldn't he?
Incredible. He has been
Uh,
incredible. I don't want to give him any credit whatsoever, but he's ran the show for them in most games
yeah,
I've seen.
he's out of contract in the summer as well. He's going to leave that one
You
there.
know, if he wants to come and play in the championship, then he's, you know.
Oh, no, Dave, come on. We'll get our points back and he'll come and play in the Europa League for us or the conference one. Is that the
What's that fella been doing as well? He turned up and went to games, didn't he, last week?
Super Silco?
I don't even know what's going on with that fella, mate. So
Yeah.
it looked like a mugshot. Someone got.
I shouldn't know who that man is. Like that's like football shouldn't be about knowing who these lawyers are or Richard Masters is or anything. Like
Yeah,
I want to like our players, not our legal team. You know, come
yeah.
on.
You don't want to
Um,
see him at any points in the news, do you? Other than he's left and someone else has taken over as the and by the way and finally. But
yeah,
yeah, mate, it's at the top of our list, unfortunately, isn't it? And there's still loads. It's will we due in the next week or so for some
could
sort
be
of
this week.
announcement?
Could be this week. Yeah. So
Yeah.
got all that to look forward to as well.
No,
And then
no.
obviously when that's done, we'll have the next one as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, this football club. We
Well,
will leave it there.
Talbot Loon will be happy because we won't be talking about him if all of this shit happens.
He'll score. He loves playing against Palace. He'll score on Monday.
Yeah,
He'll go record
hope
against them.
so,
So
mate. Let's hope so.
there we go. We'll wrap it up there anyway. Palace and Chelsea still 0-0. So fingers crossed. The lads from London, West London, can get the job done over there. Rivals south of the river. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Cheers to Dave. Cheers to everybody for listening. Leave us a rate and leave us a review on iTunes. If you're watching us on YouTube, click the like button, subscribe. Let us know your thoughts on any of that stuff we spoke about today. We'll be back later in the week with some weekly weekend preview and all usual stuff as we build up to that game against the Eagles next Monday. Cheers.